Hey, it's Nate.
It's Brian.
It's Barry.
Welcome back to the Collecti-Bros podcast. Before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to invite you all to our social media platforms. We're primarily on Discord. The link to that will be in the show notes. But if you guys want to talk about any topics of past or today's present episode, we're most engaged on Discord out of all of them. So jump in there and let us know what you think and feel. Topic of today's episode is Pokemon Snap. It's part of our mainline series, Is It Worth It? We ultimately explore the question of is it worth it? Give you guys some fun facts and background information about this game first. Pokemon Snap was released in Japan on March 21st of 1999, and then in North America of July 26, 1999, so fairly close release for each other. Developed by HAL Laboratory, known for Kirby, primarily Earthbound if you guys are into that, and Super Smash Bros. Was probably the biggest games they made. But they have a long-standing working relationship with Nintendo, dating all the way back to NES launch. They made a couple of the black box title games, Pinball, Golf, and then the Famicom got one that was exclusive as an F1 game, but we didn't get that in America.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they've had a really long-standing working relationship with Nintendo. They're not technically owned by Nintendo, but a lot of those properties, like I said, Kirby, it's huge for them. So Nintendo went to them to make a game. The interesting thing about that is this was not originally developed as a Pokemon game. Nintendo reached out for them to develop for the Nintendo 64 disk drive system initially, which we never got in America. Think of like the Super Famicom that had like the disc where it had extra storage space, loaded faster. They developed an N64 version called a DD. It had a ton of problems, got delayed a bunch. They ended up putting it out in Japan. I think there was only like 8 games for it. And Nintendo approached them to make a Jack and the Beanstalk game, which doesn't sound great, but interesting. There's still like a remnant of that left on here. If you launch this game, one of the main screens they show, and they show all the developed by HAL and published by Nintendo, they have a Team Beanstalk, which small team at HAL that was made this game. They ended up keeping the name, but they started out as a Jack and the Beanstalk game. There was never any screenshots or videos released for it. They just kind of like an announcement video they put out. It was obviously canceled. I think a lot of the assets were flipped to turn into Earthbound 64, which you guys are probably like Earthbound 64 because it was sadly canceled too. But thankfully there was a large pivot to make a Pokemon game after the success of Red and Blue came out and the anime launched. They were like, no, y'all going to jump on Pokemon bandwagon. So photography was a main element in it, and they tried to keep it, as much as possible. The team initially wasn't super thrilled about the Switch because they were like, this is going to take forever to change these assets too. We've already got a system change. But it ended up obviously working out because Pokemon became a phenomenon across the whole world. So
I was going to say that's such a foreign thought nowadays, but like when Pokemon was new, it wasn't an established property. Like now any studio would be chopping at the bit to be like, hey, you guys want to work on a Pokemon game?
Yeah, you got to think this is, the first 3D. This game actually beat Stadium to release, so it's like the first 3D Pokemon game too. So it probably was like quite the undertaking, but
came out before Hey You Pikachu, December 12th, 98.
So Hey Pikachu did beat it out, but
it's not really a game.
That. This was the second 3D Pokemon game release, so it was quite the undertaking. Hey You Pikachu came out right before it, and then Stadium came out shortly after this, so they was in the pipeline already for sure, but they accepted the challenge, and obviously this game became a huge deal. So there's a little backstory on the development and the history of this game. Let's jump. This might break a record for Collecti-Bros, but let's talk about the story really quick.
What's breaking a record?
How short this is going to be.
Nah, dude, it's not a game I picked. This game has way more story than some of the games I've picked.
I don't know.
Yeah. There actually is a premise, and there's characters. Like, come on now.
We'll find out. Alright, story time. This is going to be pretty short. This isn't a game that is built around a story. It's definitely a gameplay focused experience. So try to stretch this out as much as possible, but you were in control of a man named Todd Snap, which that is just an absolutely hilarious name. But Professor Oak asks you for help to travel to Pokemon Island. It's a remote area where Pokemon are pretty much unbothered by humans, and he's trying to further his research. And he needs you to photograph the Pokemon to further his research. You're kind of like, okay, how am I supposed to get around this island? Well, he's like, newsflash, I created this traversal vehicle called the 01. It kind of goes over land, sea, and I guess sometimes air. And it'll traverse the map, which kind of explains why this game is a rail shooter. It's at least got a story element tied to it. So sends you out on your way, and you get to photograph all the Pokemon to help Professor Oak out. So, Brian, if you said there's more story to this, you want to elaborate a little bit? Because I couldn't really think of anything.
No, it's interesting. Of like, I guess I have to get all like, hit the pipe and seem sophisticated here, but like, there's more.
Pipe.
There's more like it's interesting because like every Pokemon game prior to this, right? This is about like your trainer's journey, and this one's much more based around the actual Pokemon themselves, like in their natural habitat. Like, yeah, you have a predetermined character, but like the Game Boy games, you're making your own character, right? This is the first one where it's kind of like,
the Game Boy games, you didn't make your own character.
You named them or whatever. You're a trainer and you get to name them whatever.
I mean, I suppose that's like, but like as basic as it could possibly get.
Right,
change your name.
For what I'm trying to say is, let me hit the pipe again. Like, this is about the actual Pokemon, the world they live in, as opposed to like your trainer's journey or like a human character. This is much more about the Pokemon and their natural habitat. So it is a little interesting, especially for like the first deviation for the series. It is kind of something to think about.
Think it's a political commentary on animal captivity?
Probably. And that's it's the first one you're not training them to fight. Like, truthfully, this is literally just animals out in the wild, if you think about it, instead of like, let's capture them and make them fight.
So you start staging photographs and chucking apples and smacking them in the head with pester balls, but yeah.
It's true. I know. I think it is interesting. It's something they never really revisited until, even Hey You Pikachu, it's like you have one that's, you kind of bring into captivity, you bring into the human side of things. This is the first game where it's literally just them in nature. And then the only one since other than Pokemon Snap 2. It's true. New Pokemon Snap, whatever they call it. We can't just do numbers in Nintendo.
Well, the smoking jacket and pipe are a sophisticated look for you, Brian. You should adopt a monocle for the next episode. Barry, do you have anything to touch on this gripping story?
No.
I didn't think so, because I don't really have a lot to talk about. But like I said, this game's driving force is definitely the actual game, moment-to-moment gameplay, and Todd Snap.
It is like somebody stumbled across somebody's used cart and was like, what the fuck? Why would you name? I don't get it. And Professor Oak's a recurring character. That man stays busy. Wonder where Ash's mom is.
I don't know. What is the point? Like, Professor Oak calls you out. I mean, at least in original Pokemon, right? Professor Oak gave you a Pokédex and was like, I need information on all the Pokemon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is the point of this one?
Just further his studies.
He said, I need some pictures.
Further his studies.
What do you gain from that?
We all know what the real story is. They can tell you what it is. He's trying to get you out of the way because your mom's probably hot, and he's like, go, here's a camera.
Are we back on this again? Yeah, but it's
Professor
not
Oak
Todd Snap's mom.
Professor Oak got that dog in him, bro.
I guess Professor Oak's after anybody's mom. Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yep. Just deep cuts of the lore. I think it was on back of one of the Topps cards, right?
I don't know. It's funny though. It is like I get you had to like set up events somehow, but it's funny that they were just like, yeah, you're Todd Snap, take pictures, go, and like send you on your way. But I mean,
well, I find it interesting they didn't call it Pokemon Safari, but then they couldn't because you're not allowed to touch the Pokemon in Safari.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, you can definitely touch them in this game.
In this one, you can throw shit at them. So
it's true.
I counter Brian's pipe point of it being Pokemon in their natural habitat when I'm throwing shit at them.
That's why I said you could just chuck crap at them.
So
I mean, technically, they're still in their habitat,
and you like
look. This is obviously just a analytical study of man's manipulation of nature. You guys didn't read that in the back of the box.
Okay, I liken this to Jurassic Park. Pokemon Snap 2 should have been Jurassic Park.
Bro, this is the deepest
Pokemon,
story. What are you talking about?
They start revolting.
Yeah, attacking.
And they start getting mad that you're throwing balls and apples. And
we remember you
taking naked pictures of them.
What if their plan is to like, oh, we'll get these humans to domesticate us, train us to fight, so we can revolt?
Yeah, but you're not doing that on this island. This is a special island.
Right. They're playing 4D chess, bro. They're playing the long game.
Professor Oak's got like an Amber Omnimite fucking cane in the beginning, and
yeah. Ammonite.
There's got to be a mod.
Oh my god.
Jurassic Park 1.
No.
Last level is like a Jeep scene where Aerodactyl's like chasing you in the back and you're snapping pictures of them. That would have been a cooler ending than what we got, but...
Just throw an apple at him.
Yeah, just chuck apples at him.
Nope, knockout ball.
I don't know. This game sounds awesome, though.
No. That's the thing. There's not a lot of meat on the bone in the story, but it is interesting how much of a drastic departure it is from conventional Pokemon games, for sure.
That's a credit to Nintendo. That's what they're best, is when they kind of just do their own thing, and I think this is like a shining example of that. So,
well, in a weird way, it kind of fleshes out the world of Pokemon, too. It's like, it isn't just about fighting. Sometimes it's just about snapping.
After first
I said that with a straight face, no video yet, but yeah, I did it. I did it.
He hit us with that look where it's like,
like either nod your head or laugh. Somebody please do something.
Let's do something. Let's jump to gameplay. Since we're out of Brian's philosophy hour.
Just wait, he'll be back.
I'm getting the slippers and the coat. What you waiting for? Wait till we talk about Mew.
So really quick, the basic premise of this gameplay, I kind of said it earlier, it's best described as like a rail shooter. Obviously, you're not like mercilessly blasting Pokemon's brains out. You're taking pictures instead, but think of like you would a light gun shooter where you're set up with a stage. There's a predetermined path that you can't control. You can control its direction you look, but you can't until you unlock later things, speed or slow down. But it's a linear path. There are objects you can manipulate and Pokemon you can manipulate to open up alternate levels and open up new arenas and stuff, but you're armed with your camera. You get 60 photos per stage. As you progress and replay these levels, it's all about score. It kind of has like an arcade-ish gameplay to it where score is king. The more points you unlock by taking pictures, and the pictures are judged on the size of your Pokemon, the centering of your Pokemon, what pose they're in, and you get a multiple bonus if there's multiple Pokemon of the same species in that photo. Those points can determine, as far as you progressing, getting new items that you can use to manipulate Pokemon. There's apples you can throw. There's these things called pester balls, which are basically like mace grenades you can throw and mess with Pokemon. There's a Poke Flute, which you can use to make Pokemon dance or wake up a Snorlax. And then there's a like turbo button you can use to kind of help speed through levels when you're going back and replaying the same level multiple times. It's actually a very useful tool if you're trying to get to a certain spot. Like I said, you get the points of scores, and your total score unlocks those new things. So it kind of adds a nice little hook where you don't feel like you're playing the same level too many times, but you are playing the same stage multiple times to get new events to unlock and trigger and take pictures of.
Well, honestly, it feels very Nintendo in the sense that it wants you to, eventually get tools and then backtrack. It feels kind of like, a Metroid or a Zelda where it's like, hey, we're going to give you these tools you need, but you're not going to get everything you need immediately. It fits Nintendo perfectly, honestly.
For sure. And when you have a game when there's only 7 levels, like technically really 6, because the 7th level is kind of a joke, but like it's a smart way of kind of stretching the limitations of the N64 too. You don't want to put 100 levels and just make them kind of suck. These are all pretty dense levels, and there's like a lot going on. And like I said, there's multiple things you can unlock in every level. So I think it's really good gameplay design, honestly, as far as like not trying to overstay your welcome and not trying to do too much, but just fine tune, especially in a linear game. It's pretty hard to do. So I think it's a great mix of like simplicity and their own spin on it, and that arcade, like go for points. So that's kind of when Nintendo shines to me, is when they kind of do something simple, but make it their own. And this is like peak Nintendo for me.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I think it's interesting note too, like for a single player game, like oddly competitive when you're playing with a group of people. Like there's several times I was trying to beat Barry's score, or like I took one shitty picture and it was like, how did you score so high? Like it was interestingly competitive for a single player game. And it almost makes me want like, damn, if there was like a simultaneous online, like for Switch Online, if you could like do both at the same time and see who has the best run, that would be a lot of fun.
I'm confused on who this game is made for. Because it's not really made for an adult, but it's too complicated to be made for a kid. So I really don't know who their target audience was. Because, I mean, how, like... I mean, in the 90s, like, Pokemon wasn't for adults. It was
Right.
for like, you know, preteens and younger is what that audience is catered for. So we got this game. It's a rail shooter where it makes it simple, where you can only go a certain way and you can take pictures of Pokemon and like seems fun to a kid, right? But it's like, how are you supposed to know that you're supposed to hit a Magikarp to get him to flop over, to get him to get hit by a Mankey, to go over to a waterfall, to then hit him again so he turns into a Garrett? Like, how are you supposed to know how to do any of that stuff as a kid?
Yeah.
So this is one of those things where you can tell it's a pre-internet game because like it's like word of mouth. Like, dude, this is what I do when I played. Like, no way, you're making that up. Like, and it's one of those things where it'd probably be super magical to find some of these like organically back then.
Even then, like that's the confusing part is there is replay value, but this game isn't long enough to want me to do that. Like, I'm not going to play How long did it take us to beat it?
About 5 hours, right?
It's shorter than that. We did it about 3.5.
3.5.
Ooh.
You know,
I'm not gonna lie though, I remember a lot of shit from when we were kids. So,
but there's a lot in there that's like, okay, you've got 6 stages total. Like, how many times am I going to redo the same stage, and then have to sit at the back end, not taking any pictures of anything, and then play it over and over and over? Be like, what's different?
Yeah,
kids don't have that patience. There's no patience for a kid to do that, so it just seems odd to put it in as like, yeah, sure, it's a pre-internet game, but as a kid, I'm not playing this game on repeat. I got other things to play.
that's another thing.
So it's
too.
a weird mix of identity to me for an audience.
It just depends on kids, I guess, because they're also watch the same Ninja Turtles VHS 800 times in a row. Like, it's the joke on this game is that it's like baby's first FPS. So, but
I mean, not wrong, but also in the idea where it's like, oh, you know, if you go to school and the kids at school, no, kids ain't gonna have Pokemon Snap. They're gonna have Pokemon.
Yep.
You know, it's like one of those games where it's like, okay, maybe a couple kids had it, but it wasn't popular enough for everyone to have one to trade secrets like that. So it's like a kid playing it, making their dad do the level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of
get the same 5 pictures, and it's like,
I'll jump
into
into
the hard part.
This game was like super heavily marketed to the point where they had like printing stations at Blockbuster. You could bring your N64 memory card and print off stickers of your screenshots and stuff. And they did try to like, this game got pushed pretty. I remember seeing commercials for it when I was a kid, and I think Pokemon was like huge when this broke out. It was like brand new, you know what I mean? So this game did get like some heavy marketing. Like, as far as 64 versus PlayStation, obviously PlayStation sold more and stuff, but like they did try to make this game a thing for sure.
What came out first, this or Coliseum?
This.
Yeah.
This came out. I don't remember this game. Coliseum is where it was at.
Yeah. Well, Coliseum was the game that we all wanted as kids, but we got Hey You Pikachu in this before Coliseum.
What, Stadium?
Stadium. That's what I meant. Yeah, Coliseum was
right? Pokemon Coliseum?
Stadium was in 64.
What am I thinking of?
Coliseum's GameCube.
Oh, I'm getting the names mixed up. Stadium's what I'm
I know what you
talking
meant.
about.
I was just making sure.
Because I remember, like,
Stick was an architect, bro.
year 2000, when I went to Disney World, like when we got the 64s in the hotel room, like the game we rented was Stadium. It was like, Snap's not a blip on the radar. I'm still playing Pokemon Yellow kind of deal. So it's odd.
It's interesting. I think Brian and I probably had different experience. Like, this game was big for us, and a bunch of kids that we knew had this game and stuff. And like Stadium was kind of like, okay, this game's boring as shit.
Which is interesting because like our ages aren't that different.
Right.
So for it to be so drastic with a couple years of a difference is interesting because like anybody my age, Pokemon Snap was not it, dog. We were not there for Pokemon Snap. But it's like a slightly older group was there for Snap, which, like I said, is a weird identity crisis.
Yeah.
Where it's like, who's it catered for and who's actually going to play the game? So, I mean, I don't bring that up as like I don't like this gameplay or whatever. I just think if I'm going to have something to talk about for this gameplay other than, oh, it was good for a rail shooter and the 64, like who was this made for?
It's a good point because ultimately there's a Coliseum 2. We didn't get a Snap 2 until recently. So, I mean, like there's
and even then it wasn't even a sequel.
It was new Pokemon Stadium. Yeah, it was almost like a reimagining.
What, Snap?
Put new Pokemon Snap.
Like, goddamn.
I know, he said Coliseum too. I got everybody messed up. You did said Coliseum.
Did I say Coliseum?
It's recorded. I'll go back to it.
But no,
I meant to say Stadium.
I messed y'all up. I'm sorry.
Architecture's fucked. No, I was going to say that it's weird because Nate and I definitely had a different experience. Like, this was a huge part of our childhood. I remember going to Blockbuster and like, Mom, like, we didn't even have a 64. Like, our neighbor had a 64, but we used to play the living shit out of this game. And maybe it is just because like the beginning of Pokemon, this was like, you know, you had Hey You Pikachu and this as your 3D options before Stadium came out. So it's an interesting thing. And again, I think it's just very Nintendo of them to be like, hey, let's try something different. Like, they're not afraid to like, you know, throw a couple extra recipes in the pot and give it a good stir. And I mean, for like a rail shooter, it is very unique for the time. Like, there's, other than Africa on PS3, like, name another photography game.
There's not a whole lot. There's games.
It's not really popular. Yeah.
There's games with photography like that. You know, Dead Rising had photography in it. Sure. And then black and white, I guess.
Everything's got a photo mode now, but for them to be like, hey, we're going to do Pokemon.
That's the gameplay hook. It's still fairly unique today, honestly, you know.
Yeah, I think the last thing I can think of is like views. It killed Viewfinder.
Yeah.
But that was less photography based and more of like a puzzle mechanic.
Right.
Yeah. It's definitely like
what was it? Beyond Good and Evil?
That's what I was thinking. I said Black and White, sorry. Yeah, Beyond Good and Evil. That's
there's definitely photography in games, but for that to be the driving factor, and I think Baby's first FPS is kind of funny, but it's like, it's not even really an FPS. It's an on-rails shooter, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, because like
it is first person,
right?
Yeah,
and you do zoom with the trigger.
Definitely more of a rail like a light gun shooter though. Like rail
you use utilities, like, you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Apple grenades.
Enemies pop up in the same locations. They're not going to like change their path unless you manipulate them to. So.
Well, I do think it's interesting. Like, there is...
Yeah, but is Time Crisis a first-person shooter?
It's a light gun shooter, rail
is it
shooter.
First person?
It is first-person perspective when you're taking cover and shit. I'm just saying.
It's a first person if you can't see the gun.
You're holding the gun. It's fourth person. But no, I was going to say, I do think it's interesting how the gameplay is directly affected by the Pokemon and the tools you use against them. So it kind of goes against my own pipe smoking theory. Like, you have to manipulate the environment, right? So, like, for example, you do one playthrough.
It's not very National Geographic of you.
Hell no, it's anti-National Geographic. Like, hit him in the face with an apple. But like the Pikachu in the beginning with the surfboard's like a good, you know, premises here. Like, you walk past him, you take a picture, whatever. He's not very active. You get tools later on, you do it again, and you might get like a skillful shot. But it's my only negative with the gameplay is like, there's clearly set up moments like, you know, there's a surfboard there. You know, you want something to do, like go to that surfboard. You're never going to beat that shot once you get that. Like, that's going to be your best Pikachu score-wise picture forever. And that's my only negative. Like, it kind of like eliminates creativity.
To a degree. I mean, Pikachu is kind of like the weird example because there's like 6 unique Pikachus you can take pictures of in this game.
Not necessarily, because you've got your personal photo album. So if you want to go back and take pictures for creativity purposes to save them to your album, you can, and it doesn't like wipe out your previous score.
You can save.
I just meant from like a score perspective, like you're never going to beat that score. So
well, then you're taking that for solely the use of the score, and then you can go back and take one for a creative. So I mean,
I do like how it allows that option, like you're saying. Yeah.
Especially,
I think it would be different if you weren't allowed to save to a personal album and every single photo overwrote your last score.
Right. That's like, it's a good point because we had some personal favorites that didn't score very high, but they were just hilarious. But we have to save this one. Like, I wish we could still print these stickers because some of these are so funny. Like, ones were like moments where Barry threw an apple and like hit Pikachu in the head. He's like sitting there crying. And like Brian got one of Electro that was like completely, it's like a horrible shot of him at like post being blown up, and it was just so stupid. It made us all laugh. Like, there are some really funny ones. What do you guys think of the controls for this game?
Anything on the 64 is dog shit. I'm not afraid to say it.
I thought this controlled simply enough.
I'm biased.
I think that's the thing. Like, most of the time I'm going to agree with you. I thought this one was handled pretty well, though. Like, I think the buttons are mapped where I would want them naturally. And
here's the thing, though. It's simple enough to be fine.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything over complicated of using 3 buttons on a 64 controller, it sucks.
The fact that you're on a rail for this game benefits the controls so goddamn much. Because imagine if you had to like walk with the C buttons and get the perfect shot that they're flying.
Yeah.
Like, if you had to hit that, there was one issue, and it wasn't really the controls, I guess, where I was struggling to hit. There was a Pokemon being chased in the cave. You had to like hit him with something, stop him.
The Zubat holding the Pikachu.
To get to Balloon Pikachu, that was so hard.
That was how you got Articuno.
And even then, like, it wasn't a control issue. But imagine if you had to use the C buttons to like walk around and get up there, bro. We would have been chucking this thing like it was Castlevania 64.
That's the thing. I think a lot of ways the design was just like, hey, simple is better. And like, this game's a really good example. They simplified the controls and they kind of limited itself so it didn't get too crazy. And that's, I think, most N64 problems are when it tries to do too much. Like this game kind of like stayed in its lane. Is the best way to describe it, I guess. And like, I feel like it controlled well. I feel like it played well. There was, in the first stage, one really bad slowdown area.
There was a couple.
Yeah, the first stage I think honestly got the most I can remember because there was the area early on in the grass, and then there was the area where the dual Pikachu's on the logs where they used their lightning. It like crawled to a halt, but
there was another one in the tunnel.
Tunnel had a couple.
Yeah,
Zubats would cause flutters, but like overall, I think for an N64 game, this controls very well, and I think the gameplay is like simplistic enough where it stayed kind of in its lane. In it, I think we got a good game out of it for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point about the 64 because a lot of these, I mean, it's like Daikatana is a perfect example. They tried to do too much on hardware limitations, and this is kind of like a reflection of, hey, we know what we're limited to. Let's just get the most out of it. And I think they did a great job also with the controls. Even the gameplay is like simplistic but fun. There is a little bit of slight repetitive, the loop, it's repetitive in of itself, but it adds enough to it where it's like, hey, there is some replay value if to go back and do the levels with different tools. Even like the Poke Flute was super versatile. Like there's 3 different songs for it and they all react differently with different songs. Like only one of them makes Snorak stands up. It's really cool when you do find it the first time. I think you said it earlier, but like multiple replays of that would be tough.
I think it's one of those games where it's short so it doesn't overstay its welcome. And I feel like there's just enough backtracking where it's not getting super boring, repetitive, and there's just enough to do. There's a spot in the story where once you get through every level, first I was like, hey, I need these landmarks on every level. And you have to find these landmarks that like look like Pokemon, take a picture of them. That's like really the last time you have to go through the levels if you didn't get everything before. And that's how you unlock the last final stage, the Rainbow Cloud stage, which is probably the worst secret in a game ever. That level's not great. But
so I was thinking about that too, because we're like, this is it. You literally just take a picture of a Mew the whole time from like
the Rainbow Road or whatever
it's like
it was.
The least of, like rewarding.
He's the only Pokemon level. We were like, what the fuck? But I remember like how big of a deal Mew was as a kid, as an 8-year-old or whatever the hell this came out. It's probably awesome because like Mew wasn't even on the show. He was like this big secret in the Game Boy games. It was probably really cool for the time, but I just don't remember. I drink too much.
Was Mew? I don't remember how to get Mew in the originals.
Wasn't he like a glitch or something?
No,
I don't think you could.
You could get Mew in Red and
Mewtwo
Blue.
was in a cave.
Yeah.
I don't think you could get Mew without a Game Shark.
Thing? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I honestly don't remember. It's been so long.
It's been a really long time.
I don't
drink too much.
I don't.
We're joking here. We're having fun.
I don't know if this is necessarily for. You know what? Never mind. I'm going to save it for the collectibility.
Yeah, he is a glitch.
Yeah.
Guess I don't drink that much.
So, and this was before Stadium.
Right. I think this might have been the first time we saw Mew, right?
Let's Go?
Let's Go was for,
Not Let's Go.
Hey You.
Hey You was technically first.
Was Mew and Hey You Pikachu?
No.
I think so. I think this is the first time we saw Mew.
So this was the first time we actually get Mew?
Without a Game Shark, yeah.
Interesting.
But even then, man, like, okay, you're going to see him in the show afterwards, but like as a kid, it was probably awesome. I don't remember. I wish I did.
Yeah, it was probably a cool moment, but it's one Pokemon in that stage where I feel like the rest of the stage did a really good job of putting multiple Pokemon.
Oh, yeah.
Good variety of them. Even like if it was the one you already saw, you can make him do something different. You can make him react to something or hit a switch or use his powers. I feel like Mew kind of got the shaft where you can just kind of fly or hit him in the head with a ball and take a picture of him when he's visible or not visible. I feel like the rest, there's tons of stuff you can do with them.
Yeah, the levels feel kind of like biomes. Like they feel really lived in, even though it's like, there's a volcano level, you're going to see fire Pokemon. There's a tropical level, you're going to see water and grass. They did a really good job making it feel like National Geographic where you can throw shit and throw apples at the gorillas, I
thought the level design was like pretty good for this game.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they did a good job with every stage, honestly. I don't think there's like, other than the secret stage, which I don't really count since it's kind of like a, bonus. Like I think the normal 6 stages were all pretty well flushed out.
And even like the interactivity within the levels, every single level is going to have a secret, but finding them was a lot of fun. And then even like, hey, I wonder what happens if I throw this mist ball down this Whirlpool and a Gyarados pops out or whatever it was, Dragonite. It was cool to find them, but again, it's like, how long is that going to last? But honestly, though, this game was way more fun than I remember. I remember enjoying it as a kid. I'm like, I probably wouldn't enjoy this as an adult, but I had a smile on my face the whole time. We were laughing, having fun. again, competitive was the thing that was most shocking to me. But yeah, it's a fun game for sure.
I wouldn't have enjoyed this as a kid.
Yeah.
I would not, no.
I loved it. To say it was a huge part of me, Nate's childhood. It's like probably this, GoldenEye, obviously, and then probably Smash were like the 3 games I remember playing the most as a kid on the 64.
So in total, there was 63 Pokemon in this game. Like, it's kind of weird they missed the mark with 64 being an N64 game, but there's screenshots of a beta version of this game where Ekans was in it. Ekans was not featured in this game. They cut him. So there's probably intended to be 64 and not. But I think it's a solid variety for the... You got to think there wasn't Gen 2 yet. This is Gen 1 speaking only. So 151, they got 63 of them in it. And I mean, obviously Pikachu's almost in every level. He's not in every level. Magikarp is the most reoccurring Pokemon. He is in literally every stage but the last. Fun fact. So I think they did a good job with their variety too, honestly. As far as gameplay and stuff, I have really nothing but good things to say about this game overall. So
yeah, it's simple, but it's definitely fun. Like you're not gonna sit here and play this for 100 hours, but for like a one playthrough and then going back and finding everything, like if completing the game, it's worth. It's fun. It's worth your time and effort playing it and experiencing it at least once for sure.
Jump over to graphics. All right, Collecti-Bros' favorite N64 graphics. Barry, what were your thoughts on the graphics for this game?
I'm just not a fan of 64 graphics.
I was trying to keep it in the vein of comparing it with Hey You Pikachu, because I remember like some of the animations were really solid in Hey You Pikachu, but honestly I think the animations are really solid in this game, and yeah, that's all predetermined is the other thing, so
helps a lot.
It does help.
Wait, I'm sorry, was Hey You Pikachu first again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's interesting. Again, I think, Nate, you hit the nail on the head of knowing the limitations of the console and having it being on-rail shooters. Like, you're going to have the same actions every time. But the Pokemon are really expressive, and like there's different ways to manipulate them. I think all the animations are the standout here for me. And the renders are fine. Like, it looks like a 64 game. It's going to have its issues. But as far as the animations are the big standout for me here.
I think this game had like pretty great graphics. This is actually one of the best looking 64 games to me. There's moments of like scope and scale in this game that other 64 games just can't touch. Like you brought up the Dragonite earlier, but when you get that Charizard to pop up and he's taking up like the whole screen, there's like fire everywhere and he's like screaming and yelling. Articuno when he like flies out and he's like majestic as hell looking.
Yeah.
There's actual moments of like, whoa, that's really cool looking in this game. And like, that's kind of hard to do. Even now though, I was like, that's pretty sick. Like having the dude just like interact with their environment and you get them see them like to scale, because a lot of Pokemon games it's like, oh, it's a little tiny thing on a screen, but to see these like in a natural environment looking like an actual animal, like it was pretty cool actually, I thought. And then I thought the color palette in this game was pretty nice too.
Yeah,
I think the cave, obviously you're going to be limited, like you have your blues, your grays, your purple, that's really it. But like some of the tropical looking levels were like A+ to me, dude. Like, you know, the contrast of like some of the bright, you know, orange Pokemon with the green grass and the blue sky and the white sand, it looked really cool, and it looked like its own little world, and it felt like I was walking through Pokemon land. Like I actually thought the graphics were one of the better parts of this game, honestly.
I mean, there were definitely levels that were better than others. Like the canyon level was subpar.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, what can you do with a canyon level? Not much. It's mostly just like water and rocks. Yeah. But then you switch over to, I think it was the jungle that had like Slowpoke and Poliwag. That one looked really good. Yeah. This game overall, there's a lot going on, and it's impressive that it ran as smoothly as it did consistently. And you know, there was slowdown. There was slowdown very noticeably, but very briefly. So it was like, oh, I gotta chug through this 3 seconds and then I'm fine. It's like trying to squeeze myself through a tiny bottle on the game. But for as much like effects that were happening all simultaneously, it was impressive that it ran. But I think that they knew what they were doing in terms of what we can and can't do. And they prioritized what they should have prioritized and cut what they should not have put in. So it was pretty smart as like a total package.
Honestly, I think it might be the best example of like, we know what our limitations are. Let's execute the best way. This like the perfect game for the 64 argument. I want to say, I think the first level is probably the most impressive. Like, what a start. Like, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of variety. The biggest thing for me in the first level is the Gyarados out in the distance. Like, that's a long way out. Lapras, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, yeah. But yeah, it was a long way out. Like, the draw distance is actually, like, good in this game. It's never, like, nothing just pops up. You can, like, see shit coming. You can see it fly off in the distance. It'll circle back around. There's a lot of things in this game that's very anti-N64. Like, every other N64 game would fail at. This is, we keep saying it, but this is the best example of like utilizing the console to its fullest potential.
It's because everybody who tried to make anything on that console just tried too much. Like they were like, oh, we have to overcompensate because it's the first time we're doing 3D graphics. And so they just had to put too much shit in.
Yep.
Like I'll hate on the 64 all day. I'll give this game a lot of credit for what it did. It did what everything else failed at, was making it too complicated. The controls aren't complicated. The gameplay's not complicated. The graphics aren't complicated, so it works.
Yeah.
That's why it works so smoothly compared to some other games where you're like, oh, it doesn't feel like it chugs, or I didn't feel like I had problems controlling anything, or, you know, and with Hey You Pikachu being first, they already had an idea of like, okay, how do we want Pikachu or Pokemon models to look in 3D? And now they've expanded that. Were there any, I guess this is probably something you didn't look up, but were there any Pokemon that were in Hey You that weren't in this one?
Trying to think really quick.
Togepi?
I don't remember Togepi in this game.
It's not in Snap.
Yeah, Togepi's not in Snap.
So I can't. Abra?
Abra's not in Snap.
So there were some that like were in the other one that have 3D models, but this one has a large number of brand new 3D models. And I don't feel like any of them were bad.
No.
Like there wasn't any of the models that didn't look like the Pokemon where I was like, what is that? Or that's a terrible looking Slowpoke. I mean, the Cloyster was like, you got to see one and it wasn't too hot.
Yeah, because he was spinning.
Because it was like, he was spinning and he was like at a distance, but they did a lot of things very successfully. And sorry, but other 64 games aren't good because of that reason. It wasn't complicated.
My thing's like comparing these models, minus Pikachu, obviously, because he was the star of the show of Hey You. Like, these look just as good, if not better, animation-wise than Hey You Pikachu, in my opinion.
I think, like, especially the ones that had, like, with the Magikarp, when he was, like, shiny and he was, like, fluttering out of the, I guess he wasn't shiny, he was sparkling, and he's, like, coming out of the water and he's, like, flapping around. There was actually a lot of detail. There's even, like, water effects dripping off of them. And
there was, like, a lot of effects. I think the
attacks looked great in this game. I think they look better than they do in Stadium, honestly. Like, there's a couple of the Pikachu, like, if you do the Pokeflute on the ones on the logs in the first stage, they'll, like, get pissed off and start shooting, like, huge lightning bolts everywhere, and it looks really cool. It does.
The Scyther attack was really good, too.
Scyther looked awesome. It did stutter a little bit when they started going, like, mega powers, but
yep.
I think some of the, like I said earlier, some of the Pokemon were super impressive. The way they moved, like, the scope of them. Like, it's the first time I ever saw Dragonite look to scale where you're like, wow, he's huge. You know,
well,
so.
And it also was, I mean, you can't do anything with Metapod or Kakuna, but like, it wasn't like, oh, a Pokemon's just walking across an area and you get a picture of him.
I feel like they're all fairly dynamic.
Like, there was a lot of Pokemon that had multiple, like the Charmanders would kind of, you know, would flop over and fall, or they would sit, or they'd spin or turn around, or, you know, they had so many animations per model too.
That's the thing. You can almost make all of them dance with the different Pokeflute songs. So they had like their own unique dance you could do and take photos of. And
yeah, it's the animation in this game that does it for me. The animation's great. Even like,
I mean, there's some that you couldn't control. Like Dragonite only did one specific thing because you had to do a specific thing to get him.
Right.
But even some of them like that were like that Articuno we didn't actually get because that was a pain in the ass. But I saw a video of that Pikachu that's by him, that you save that balloon Pikachu, you can actually have Pikachu ride Articuno's back.
That's dope.
You can get like a riding Pikachu, which some of them are super dynamic. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, for me, the animation is definitely the star of the show. I think all the levels feel different enough. Like I said, the Barry touched on it. The one at the cave, or not the cave, like the rapids level is probably my least favorite, because even the cave
canyon thing, yeah.
But like, I don't think it was like, oh, this is horrible, I don't want to do this. Like, we had to do it several times to get that Mankey on the top of the hill, and it never felt like a chore. It was always fun to look at, and even though it's scripted and like it's predetermined, like I was still interested enough to keep looking at it, or maybe I would find something different. There's a lot of fun ones too, like the polygon being like hidden and you have to like knock them out with the gas till he wakes up and gets like the 3D effect off of him. That was pretty cool. There's a lot of like interesting little neat things to find your first playthrough.
I think there's some cool callbacks to some of the cards too. Like there's the Pikachu and the balloons if you save them from the Zubat.
Surfing Pikachu.
There's actually some fun little Easter eggs in this game.
Yeah, for me, even like I'd have to play it again. This is going off childhood memory, but I think a lot of the Pokemon themselves look better on this than they do in Stadium. And yeah, Stadium's a bigger game, but for converting a 2D image to a 3D, I think they did a great job.
So overall, I think this game aged pretty well for an N64 game, which is not something you'll hear a lot on this podcast.
No.
Not a lot of humans in it. That's why. Anime humans.
Hot snap, bro.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, he looked like boo-boo. Yeah. When you'd leave the level and the camera would spin around so you could see him exiting, he looked bad. I
will say the animation before you go into the level is pretty cool at the bottom of the screen. It feels kind of like the animated series with him and Professor Oak, and you'd be like, yes, and you go running.
Oh, like the hand-drawn stuff?
Yeah, that was cool. That was a nice touch.
All right. I think that covers graphics, bros. Let's go ahead and jump into sound. So doing research on sound, it's kind of a little sad. The music was composed by Ikuko Mimori. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher this. Ikuko Mimori. There's not a lot of information about her, sadly. She's uncredited composer for this game, so that's already doo-doo when you don't get credit for your work. She also did the sound design for this game, too. As far as previous work, there's not a lot of information about her. If you guys have ever played Metal Storm on Super Nintendo, she did the sound effects for that. And then she did the music composition for R-Type 3, and that's really the only stuff she has credit for. I would imagine she has some more uncredited works, but it's not a lot of information about her out there. And even more sad, no one really knows what she's up to today. There's no information about if she's still in games or she's still doing music, so there's not a whole lot to talk about as far as the background for her work in this game. But I think it's kind of a continuing trend of this game, which we're going to talk about it. Did you guys think of the sound and how it fit? Did it try too much to kind of stay in its lane as well?
Honestly, I thought all of the music was extremely atmospheric. If you just played the sound, I would be like, oh, this must be a jungle level or this must be a fire level. I thought the music was fantastic, honestly. There's some bangers on here, and they're all, within the whole length. You're not going to get any looping, which is my biggest annoyance with games and music, because it's all one path. It's exactly this long. You're going to get the portal sound to start it, portal sound to end it, and the rest of it's the music that fits. The music's great in this game, and not even just the music, honestly, the sound design too. Previous Pokemon titles, it's going to be weird buzzing noises and chirping noises. This is reminiscent of the anime where they're going to say their names, they're going to chant. It's interesting to hear that for the first time, because was it in Hey You Pikachu? I honestly don't remember.
Yeah, they said their names and stuff, and then
when the Pokemon actually said their name instead of just being like blah, blah, blah.
Pikachu definitely did.
I feel like I remember Bulbasaur saying Bulbasaur.
Yeah, they said their names because when you cook for them, they get pissed off if it was nasty. They'd be like, yeah, they said their names in that.
I feel like this was, like I said, I don't clearly remember, but I feel like this was very dynamic in terms of the way the Pokemon interacted and the sounds they make. It wasn't just and that was cool.
Yeah, it wasn't their names, but it was more specific to what that animal probably would have made.
Yeah.
I thought the sound all fit. That's the biggest thing to me. Nothing felt out of place or what the hell's going on here. I thought also the music was all really upbeat, which kind of helped power you through a level, And Brian, you kind of already said it, but everything fit because it was a predetermined length or whatever, which definitely helps when you're doing design for sound and music. You don't have to try to change stuff with what's going on. It's already organically happening in a predetermined path, so that really helps. I thought the music was pretty great overall, honestly. And it's not going to do anything that's going to blow your mind, but it's a recurring thing we keep talking about here. Everything just kind of fits and stays in its lane. It doesn't overextend itself, and it makes it work honestly better that way. If it would have went too hard, we know N64's got a problem with audio anyways. This did right when it needed to and kept the themes important, where it sounded like Pokemon. It felt like I was in a beach. I felt like I was in a cave. The menu music was kind of a bop. Honestly, it was my favorite was the menu music. But yeah, everything fit really well, and I actually really enjoyed it. And kudos to Miss Mimori; she did great. So
I really liked the lava level music. I thought it was cool, stood out. Barry, this one will be pretty easy to pick music for between segments. Shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah, there's a lot of good ones to
I
pick.
got a couple picked out, but you can pick whatever you want. But yeah, I thought like
Drop them links in the Discord if y'all want to hear them.
I'll drop some.
Picks.
I thought there's a lot of like bops, dude. Like when you're getting your photos graded, that music's kind of like pretty fire, honestly. But even then, it's like an upbeat, so that helps. There's like I think the Pokemon music's pretty iconic for the franchise. You know, it all sounds like Pokemon, if that makes sense. There's nothing that's going to sit there and like what's the psychic one that drove people to kill themselves from Game Boy?
Lavender Town.
Yeah, there's no Lavender Town in this. Like everything's pretty upbeat. Nothing's going to drive you to psychically kill yourself, but it fit this game. This game's kind of like a lighthearted, fun experience where you're just shooting photographs and hitting Pokemon in the head with apples, and it fits the narrative very well. So
I like the sound of throwing the apple too, where it's like, chew, like a grenade. It's pretty fun. I remember y'all were giving me shit for just smacking them with it.
Oh, Brian would not take pictures and he would just hit stuff.
Trying to get secrets. All right.
You're more concerned about hitting things than actually getting
about
points.
Secrets.
God.
You gotta break a couple eggs, all right?
It was super satisfying to do, though. I'm not gonna lie. Like when you hit it, and you hear that apple sound, you arc it just right, and then you hear like the dunk when you crack them in the head, and they're like, ugh. Like it is hilarious.
Obviously, the gas balls are fun, but like the apple, there is something extremely satisfying about hearing it and then seeing like the Donkey Kong Country like pre-rendered apple flying through the air until it hits the ground and gets animated. Like, yeah, shout out to the apples.
And like the sound was honestly a big part of that to make it so like you get that anticipation, like boom, and it was a super fun little thing to do. So
yeah,
that's the thing. It's like we're gonna keep talking about it, but everything's just fit right and aged well, honestly, by staying in its lane. So I wish I had more to talk about with the sound, but there's just not a lot of information about it, and you'll get that with uncredited work. But
it really fits the rest of the game, just tight. Like this game's extremely tight. Like the controls are tight, the gameplay is tight, the graphics are tight. Like everything's just like in its little box, and it's like fits it in perfectly so well.
I think if you're going to make a game short, it has to be well crafted, tight, gameplay focused. Like this game, it's HAL, dude. Come on, HAL's great. So they knocked it out of the park in my opinion. All right, guys, let's jump to the main event. Ultimately asking, is this game worth it? Let's go over prices first. This game did actually release with 4 SKUs. There's a North American SKU, a Japanese SKU, a PAL SKU, and an Australian SKU. If you care about that sort of thing, there's 3 different artworks for it. The USA has its own box and cart. Japan has different art on the cart and the box, and the PAL version has a unique box with the same cart art as USA. Australian looks exactly like PAL. So try to get prices for everything I could find. Loose, this game is extremely affordable. The US copy, you can get it for $10 or even less sometimes. Japan, you can get a cart for $5 shipped. That's absolutely a steal.
Wow.
You don't need any peripherals for this game.
No, this isn't a Hey You Pikachu where you need a camera to hook up to. You literally just need a controller and a 64. So like, find another Pokemon game you can find for $5. I don't think Hey You Pikachu is $5 for a cart, dude. So
No, I don't remember it being that cheap.
Throwing it out there really quick. Complete in box.
Puzzle? How cheap is puzzle?
I don't see a lot of puzzles.
I don't see it very much.
I bet you it's more than $5. Like, you know what I mean? And like that's I guess we'll break over that in a minute.
The only other thing I could think of is puzzle or the TGC Game Boy game.
It was TGC Game Boy game. I think
one's
it's like $10 now, though. Dude. I think it's like
just
$10.
the cart for puzzles like $25.
Oh wow!
I think the Game Boy game's like $10 now for just a cart.
Okay.
Card.
So,
what's it called? Card.
TGC.
Trying to see the literally the cheapest game.
$8 for the Japanese version of the trading card game. Trading card game cart now is up to like $20.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
what?
This might be the cheapest cart price Pokemon game, which that's a whole thing we can jump into. I couldn't find any cart prices for the PAL version, but as far as complete
the PAL version,
yeah, I just couldn't find any available. So I mean, $10, $5 for Japan version, and then I'm assuming PAL is going to probably be a little more, but I doubt it's something crazy.
There's a player's choice also. Interesting. If you care, if you want your box to be uglier.
Pokemon Snap PAL is 17 loose, 50 complete.
I feel like a lot of the PAL and 64 stuff cost a little more than everywhere else, but yeah, I had 50 for complete for
For the US one?
No, US one's around $100 if
Okay.
you just want the manual and the game.
It looks like the PAL in the US is comparable for loose.
Okay.
But complete is where it gets.
So here's the thing with complete in this
expensive.
game. It's about $110 game complete. This game did come packed with pre-made stickers that are like you could get printed off a Blockbuster. There was a sheet that was exclusive to the complete in box new version. You're going to spend about $20 to $25 to get those stickers. So if you want just a cart and a manual, you can get it for as cheap as $100 sometimes, but it's around $110. With the stickers, you're spending around $125 to $130. So Japan version is the cheapest way to go. You can get it complete shipped for $40. Obviously, the N64 boxes are shaped different.
Are there stickers in the Japanese version?
I couldn't find any, but it doesn't mean there's not any. So I don't know if that was just a thing we had here in America with Blockbuster, but
Let's say with licensing and stuff, I bet it was
That's-
just a Blockbuster thing.
yeah. I know PAL had a different department store they could print their stickers off of. It was not Blockbuster, but I've never heard of it because obviously I haven't shopped a lot in Europe. But the PAL version is about $80 complete. It's pretty comparable. I couldn't find a whole lot of sales on that one, though.
Say, interesting enough, there's also 2 different demo versions for this game. Did you see that?
No.
So, you know how they have like the not for sale 64 carts? They have a normal one that says not for sale, but they also have one that says demo only, not for sale. So there's 2 carts out there that have demo labels.
Those are obviously going to be significantly more expensive.
Yeah, but just an interesting side note.
Looks like there are quite a few DS Pokemon games cheaper than this.
Really?
Loose.
Interesting.
Like 6 of
I like the
them.
spin-offs.
Yeah.
Which
Rumble Blast, Trozy,
I don't know what that is.
Dash, Mystery Dungeon, Baloo Rescue Team, Pokemon Moon, Pokemon Sun, and Pokemon Pinball.
Pokemon Sun's cheaper just a cart? Wow.
It says $19.
Interesting.
I'm just going off of what my app says.
Yeah.
19's more than 10.
My app says Snap Loose is $20.
Damn.
Yeah, mine says 20.
So
I was just looking at recently sold.
Yeah. Well, we're on the correction path now.
That's
true,
That's true. That's a
yeah.
really good point. That like, maybe my app's having some where I'm like, that's a little high. So,
yeah.
but
Hey,
Yeah.
Japanese copy for $5 is still
That's-
that's going to be hard to
it's
top.
$40 complete.
It used
It's
to be
unique.
my app was about 20% less than what
Yeah,
this thing was
Mine's
worth.
kind of having a weird correction right now too. But then the last that no one cares about, sealed prices. If you're into that sort of thing, you can get a sealed copy for $300, the cheapest one available on eBay right now. They average around $400, but there's people selling them for $300 because the sealed game shit's dying, thankfully. So
You say that, then Castlevania sells for $90,000.
God. I forgot about that.
You
hey,
see,
there's a sucker out there for everything.
unrelated, but you see why he bought it? That interview with PC Gamer.
No, I saw you posted
Yeah,
it.
basically, it's the first game his mom got him. And he's like, I very remember like begging for it or whatever, and I wanted that game. And they're like, well, why didn't you just get like a complete in box one? He was like, no, I wanted like the real deal, like the first one I held as a kid. Like,
Yeah, you can do that. That's open
You
still.
can do that for $30-$40 for this game, guys, if you want.
Anyways.
Anyways, so yeah, those are all the prices kind of around for it. So when I picked this game initially, it was a little more than that. It was going for around 140 to 150, honestly, but we kind of touched on it over the past year and a half. Honestly, prices have kind of started slowly going down. So I try to pick things a little more than $100, but this one kind of evened out a little bit. So I don't think that's a bad thing. Hey, this game is common, like Brian said. There's a player's choice version of it. This is not a rare game by any means. This game's sold very well too. So let's get your guys' thoughts around the table. We'll go with Barry. It's an N64 game. Do you think it's worth it for those prices?
No.
No. Why not?
I think the cart's fine. There's no point in buying. Complete. That's not worth $100. It's not, especially if you're asking people to include unpicked stickers for it being even higher. That's ridiculous. So that's too much. I think that this game is a fun 3-4 hour play, but there's no replay value past that. Like once you've done everything, then what's the point? It's hard for me to, especially being a single player game. It has no in-game competition where you'd want to go back and, face a friend. There's no co-op in it, so you couldn't go back and be like, hey man, do you want to play this game with me? If we're looking at a single player experience, nobody else is playing it. I'm not going to pull this off my shelf and play it again. So buy the cart. Don't buy this complete. Complete's too much for that.
I forgot to mention, I should mention this very quickly. This is a game that is on the Switch Online service now too, so this is not the only way to play it.
It was for the longest time, though.
It was on the Wii.
That's why the sequel got demanded so high, and it took forever because this was like a beloved game.
It was on the Wii Shop and the Wii U Shop before that too. So this is a game they have like supported throughout the years.
I think this game is simple and it's a good fun play for a one-time deal, but I'm not paying $100 for a one-time deal. So I don't really like. I like having games that I would like to pull off and play them again, and this is like a fine experience, but it's not worth my time. It's not worth another 4 hours to me to play it again, if that makes sense.
So
I had a great time the first time I played it, but like, of all the games that I would be like, what game would you want to replay? Like, this is not on my list.
Yeah,
like
I
at
feel
all.
Like this is one of those games you go back and visit every 10 years and be like, remember Pokemon Snap? Like, I had a blast playing it again. It's literally the first time I've played it since childhood. And I mean, I could see myself doing it again in a couple of years, but it's not going to be anytime soon.
No.
That's a fair statement, yeah.
So, complete, no, that's not worth it. Unless it was like, the game your mom got you as a kid, the first game that your mom got you, and, you wanted it so badly that you had to pay that much money for it. But
I don't think anything's worth $90K.
No,
I'm throwing it out there real quick.
I don't think it's worth that much.
I'm going to be devil's advocate, and I'm going to say grab that Player's Choice. Like, there's less copies of the Player's Choice out there than this version. It's only like literally $5 more complete. Like, it's cardboard. We have that argument all the time. It's a console exclusive. It's that gold label Player's Choice is exclusive to 64. Like, I'd say grab the Player's Choice for this game, man, if you're going to buy it complete in box. And really, $100 for a Pokemon game seems like a pretty good deal for a console exclusive. I mean, if you're going for a complete Pokemon library on 64, there's 4 games, right? 2 stadiums, this, and Hey You.
Puzzle.
Oh, I forgot about Puzzle. I always forget about Puzzle. But for how unique this game is, it's a console exclusive. Like, yeah, it is short, but like, it might be the nostalgia talking. I think this one's worth it. Yeah, there is ways to play it, but if you want like a physical copy of a game that's a console exclusive, paper box, we're going to sit there and beat that dead horse. I'd say eyeball that Player's Choice, man. There's less of them out there, and it's ugly on the side or whatever, but it stands out a little bit. It makes it more 64, if you will.
So for me, I bought this for $30 about 8-9 years ago. It's definitely worth that price point to me.
Oh yeah.
I think if you I can kind of see merit to both saying this is worth it and this is the one. So I kind of hate that I have to sit here and be the tiebreaker for this episode, but
let's just say I have a huge list of games that are under $100 I would rather buy.
For sure.
I have games that are $80 that I could buy and then buy this for a cart for $20.
I think you can make kind of an argument for both. And like, yeah, it's extremely short. The replay value is extremely limited. As far as a collector, so as far as playing, like I think all of us would agree, like everyone should at least play this once. It's a fun enough game. It's a unique enough experience. Or if you have a Switch, jump on Switch Online and download it and spend an afternoon playing it. I think we all three would sit there and say, yeah, play this game.
Yeah.
Now, if you want something that's just to sit on your shelf to have a physical copy, and it has to be complete in box, I think $30 to $40 for Japanese exclusive, where you don't need text in this game. Like you take pictures, bro. Like you don't need
Is the score?
Yeah, numbers are in English.
Normal numbers?
Bro.
Numbers are in English, bro.
Yeah.
That's what he just said.
Yeah.
I hate you.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
God.
So, yeah, obviously, this
come
isn't...
for us.
It's fine. Come at me. I don't care. If you guys can't take a joke, piss off.
I can't.
That's why it's new Pokemon Snap, not Pokemon Snap 2.
Yeah. So...
I was messing. This is funny.
Oh, it's hilarious. Anyways, yeah, so I mean, if you need a physical copy, Nick, I have to have one complete in box. $30-$40 seems extremely reasonable for a Japan copy. If you want to spend $100, I think you could justify, like Brian said, this is a Pokemon game. This is one of the first spinoffs for Pokemon. It's complete in box, cardboard argument. $100 is reasonable. $120 even is fairly reasonable for Pokemon. I think if you have the nostalgia bug for this game and you went to Blockbuster and you printed off stickers, you're swapping war stories with the mates. Like there's a lot of games that are this common that cost way more. This is a part of a franchise now too. There's a second Pokemon Snap game. We don't know if we'll ever get a third, but like this is the beginning of a franchise. So I think there's good arguments for both, that it's worth it or that it's not worth it.
Is Hey You Pikachu the same price?
Hey You Pikachu's more
Complete?
Yeah, peripheral though also, like exclusive
That's
peripheral.
true.
So that's the thing too, like with the market correcting, I think this is going to keep dropping too. So like if you are looking for one, wait a little bit. Like they ain't going anywhere. It's player's choice. There's a shitload of them out there.
Yeah, there's no unique accessories to this game, like Barry said
Hey,
earlier.
Pikachu, same price.
Is it? Damn, it's falling down too, bro.
It says 94. So then that's what I've been sitting here thinking about when you're saying that is like, Hey, Pikachu has a peripheral with it. A bigger box.
Unique size box, yeah.
It's a little more unique for the same price.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
So that's a comparison where it's like,
which one would you rather play again?
We'd all rather play this than Pikachu ever again, though.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There were some funny moments in both of them.
I think Hey You Pikachu has more options for variety play. This is just rinse and repeat. When do I get the items to attack the same thing that's coming out at the same moment? Does that make sense?
Yeah, but
when it works. Hey You Pikachu.
I get what you're saying. To me, this is so much better of a game than Hey You Pikachu.
I agree.
But this is actually a good game. I wouldn't call Hey You Pikachu a good game.
I'm not saying Hey You Pikachu's a good game. I'm saying which one would I rather play?
Yeah, I'd rather play this all day.
I think there's something about the monotony of a game that just doesn't interest me.
It's arcade style.
Yeah, and that's just never, I don't know. I like to think about, this one I'm just kind of pointing and clicking. So I guess I'm less attached to it. Whereas you have got like, if you think about Stadium, the counterpart, there's strategy involved in that where it's like not every single outcome is going to be exactly the same. This one, every single outcome is exactly the same. Yeah. Every single time you go through that stage, it's the same. If you have a different item, it might change it a little bit, but it's basically a tree where you can map the outcome of every scenario in this game. And that just kind of is not my thing. So I'd rather play Hey You Pikachu where I got to scream at him and maybe he's going to pick up the water bottle. I don't know.
There is fishing.
I think there's merit to both. I think the best way to describe it, this game is designed like an older, honestly, like an arcade game like Pac-Man or something where it's kind of the same thing, but you're chasing a score. It's like an old game in a lot of ways.
Which is surprising. This never got a cabinet, like ever. This could have easily been a cabinet.
Nintendo was pretty much done with that shit though, weren't they by then?
No, they did the F-Zero one.
So one.
This for GameCube era, but
Castlevania had one.
Yeah, Castlevania had
Castlevania what? The Konami arcade game?
That
wasn't Nintendo developed.
Yeah, okay.
Well, that's the thing. Nintendo got this. They have a lot of history with the arcade. This would have been a perfect cabinet game, man.
Perfect cabinet game,
and we never got one. Exclusive
and here's the thing, though, is
you had to snap it and print it there
every single time. Yeah, like they have the printout where it would spit it out.
That would be so sick.
Like
fuck tickets. You can get fucking stickers.
Right.
Yeah.
You can get stickers and it prints out. I just think that this every single time that we get an arcade game and they try and port it to a console, it's dog shit. But now we've got an arcade game made for a console.
I think this would be good. A digital game if it came out today. Like, you know what I mean? This wouldn't be a console release. This would be like, hey.
Well, new Pokemon Snap was a console release.
It's a lot longer than this.
There's a lot more meat on the bone, too. Like, it's way more. Yeah. It's like it's not quite.
Well, I mean, but look how much you can fit on an N64 cartridge.
I get
like nothing.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but like, there's long games on the N64.
They filled that cartridge up with just the graphics. Yeah. Like they didn't have time for anything else.
I think there's merit though for both arguments that it's being worth it or not worth it. I think this kind of says what kind of collector you're on. Me, like, I've definitely focused my collecting more this past year. I love Pokemon. I'm willing to spend $100 on almost anything Pokemon. So this is worth it to me personally. I won't fault you if you don't think it is, because I think there's very good arguments of why it's not, mainly being the length. And if you're, as much as I enjoyed playing this game, I had a way better time than I expected playing it. I can't see myself playing it again anytime soon.
Yeah, it'll be another 20 years before
we did everything except for hit that damn Pikachu out of Zubat, and we were like, we're just not going to play this level one more time to do that. So like,
I think we missed 3.
I think there's 3 we were missing total.
I know we were missing Articuno
was one of them, but that was
Arcanine. We never got Arcanine.
Okay.
Because so you have to throw the ball into the little volcano and Growlithe will pop out.
That's right.
Sometimes Arcanine pops out, and it doesn't really tell you which one. Yep. Yeah.
I'm not going to go back and replay this game to see an 3D rendered Arcanine.
No.
So
I can go to YouTube.
I really have a lot of great things to say about this game. I think it's, if you're just dying to play it, you can play it on Switch Online, boys. Like, to be honest, and it's
I don't want to be Debbie Downer about this game because I'm not.
We're being realistic.
Great game.
I
think it's worth to play. I think it's worth $20 to play it. I think it's worth on Switch Online if you want to have that N64 experience, like cart all day. The justification of spending $80 extra for a box is kind of high for me.
Unless you're like truly an N64 Pokemon collector, I'm going to say no, but
Yeah.
like I'm going to say if it's something that you want, this is a pretty good deal for a Pokemon game.
So let me put my gaze.
Kind of divided on this one.
Let me gaze into my crystal ball. If this
You sucking on the pipe?
no, this pipe's empty.
Oh,
Okay.
you're a psychic now.
Yeah, I'm a
psychic
psychic
philosopher.
now. Yeah,
Go.
I gotta put my hat on. If we look at market corrections, this hovers around 80. Do you think that's more reasonable? That's where I think eventually it's
No.
going to be because
I
there's so
still
many.
wouldn't buy
I think it's the same
$80.
arguments for no. Honestly, I think it's the same arguments for yes at that point
What's the
too.
price
Though,
of a new game? You know, I think it's no brainer.
There's a lot of $80 PS2 games I'd rather buy.
that's the thing. If this wasn't a Pokemon, if this was a photography game that had nothing going for it, if this
No,
was just
that's true.
if this
Well,
was
like
an Animal
$300
Safari,
Africa.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, at least that's low print though. This isn't low print.
Nope.
Like that's the thing. If this wasn't Pokemon, there's 100% no
It
from
is
the
a
whole table.
Pokemon tax.
That's true.
Yeah.
So I think that's worth saying too.
Now I get what you're saying. That's true. Yeah.
It's kind of like we talked about Hey Pikachu. If that was a normal fucking game, we were talking to an adult.
That
I
was a
mean,
dog,
I mean,
bro.
on the flip side though,
That was
like I can
Nintendo's one.
understand the biasy because like if this was Digimon Snap, boy, I would be buying it. All right, So I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, I feel Barry's hypocritical because it's true. But like personally, to me, I can see the argument on
Yeah.
one side,
Yeah.
just like Nate can see the argument on the other side. But as much as I love Pikachu, dog,
I would eventually pay $100 for this, but like if I didn't get this for 30 hours complete, I probably wouldn't pay $100. I just like Barry said, there's multiple games that are in this price range that I think there's less of that are more rare that are like more of a collectible per se than this.
Mhm.
But I really want to emphasize none of us are knocking this game. We all three enjoyed our time with this game. I think just the length of it is, if you're talking about collectability, it's part of what separates us from other collectors. We actually play our games, and I think that's something you have to talk about with this game. It is
Yeah.
so short.
I was gonna say I had a cart. I let someone borrow it, and I have that cart back. So I do want a copy of this game. So I'll probably wait till the price to drop, or maybe I'll go after that player's choice.
So
Here's the thing: is I'm not buying it though.
Yeah.
So much as I said the carts are $20, I won't be buying it because I don't buy loose carts.
you
Yeah.
just,
So
like I said, we're players. You can play it on Switch if you ever get to play it again.
yep.
And it's
Or I
really,
could just go to my friend's house who has it. Like there's a lot of options,
so I think that's an interesting one overall. It brings up a lot of good points of discussion. I think it's up to you ultimately as what type of collector you are. For me, yeah. If I was not a horse and a racer Pokemon, I don't know, honestly. So I don't think Barry's wrong for saying no. I don't think Brian's right for saying yes. So I'll leave it up to you guys, the listeners.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Look at you being political. Put your campaign hat on.
It's election season, boys.
Button your button. Excuse me.
You say button your button.
So, yeah.
So what's that? Yes? Worth it?
You gotta pick, homie.
You said yes.
I say yeah overall.
So it's two yeses and a no.
I think because it's Pokemon, I'm gonna lean yes. But if you were like you're wrong, I'd say okay, you're probably right too. Like
Oh, I definitely get the argument.
I think they're good arguments for no. I think they're good arguments for yes. It should be up to whoever's purchasing and spending
Yeah,
money. Don't let
yeah.
other people dictate what you want in your collection,
I
which
think
is
Exactly.
no. I think this is an easy game to say no and yes, have both valid points on both sides.
Mhm.
I mean, if you look back to our previous episode on Mega Man, you justifying a yes to me would be difficult.
So you
Very-
better come with
Very difficult.
notes, homie.
This is an easy justification for
This
yes.
isn't shelf
Even though
one.
I don't agree with it, I can be like, okay.
Yeah.
Mega Man? Nah, dog. So,
You better come with a fucking stone tablet with full of notes and this is from the word of God why you should say yes to buy this game for Mega Man.
that game should have been delivered by an alien.
Dude, the game was made by an alien.
Whew.
it's about good on time, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, we really appreciate you guys listening. Let us know what you think it's a yes or no. Pokemon Snap. Let us know in the Discord. We'll agree and disagree with you, but we'll probably tell you you're right because I think this is like a fairly divided episode in a good way. It's a good talking point episode for us. This is why I thoroughly enjoyed doing this series. So we can't wait to hear from you. We cannot thank you enough for your support and listening to us. Bless, bless. Hey, Brian, what do we got up, down, next? Brian, what's next for the Collecti-Bros to discuss?
We're going to have a chat about some of the best launch titles per console, or just in general, which consoles had some of the best launch titles available.
Have to pull out our memory banks for that one.
It's going to be a lot of research, yep.
Yeah,
I'm old, so I already know my answer. That's why I picked this episode.
it's a good topic though, because a lot of especially nowadays, there's crossover between the last gen and this gen. And then back in the day, it was new console, new game. What the hell am I looking at? Now it's like it takes a year or two for stuff to get going. So this will be an interesting one to talk about, honestly.
Or there's consoles that don't launch with any launch titles, but that's neither here nor there. We'll save that for the flip side episode, I guess.
But thank you again. I appreciate you all. Bless. Have a great day.
Bye.
Stay persecuted.
Stay oppressed. Not persecuted.
New year, new theme.